I think the case is rather clear as to what's wrong about our involvement in Vietnam.
I think one of the major causes of riots in the past has been overpromising and underproducing. Let's not overpromise now.
It's not because there are so many votes going to represent Oregon and Chicago, but the fact that people decide. So I'm taking my candidacy to the people.
I'm not dead. That sounds like something interesting. Next month, Oregonians will be asked to vote in the May primary to help decide the two candidates running for President of the United States. But a lot of Oregonians don't think their vote really matters because basically the two candidates are decided by the time we get our primary. In 1968, that was not the case. Oregon still had a significance in the vote in this country, and a lot of candidates came here to Eugene, Oregon to try to sway our vote. Photographer Bill Getz and a reporter named Steve Frank in 1988 looked back at 1968. We're going to show that special in two parts, one this week and one in a couple of weeks. So here is Oregon in the spotlight.
1968 was one of the most eventful years in our history. In fact, some sociologists say there was too much history to absorb all at one time. Today, we will look back at a short but important time in that year, the race for president in the Oregon primary. Richard Nixon was the early front-runner in the 1968 Republican race, but those who opposed him saw Oregon as their last chance to derail him. The early favorite was three-term New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller.
Well, we come down to the final day, the final hours of this Oregon primary.
Rockefeller had won Oregon's 1964 Republican primary, but he lost the nomination to Barry Goldwater in one of the most divisive Republican conventions in history.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
Goldwater lost that year, but Rockefeller hesitated to run again. He did not want to be blamed for dividing the party a second time. And anyway, former Vice President Richard Nixon had already gotten a huge jump in the race.
The Goldwater-Johnson election was a real debacle, and so we had to find somebody else in '68.
Eugene attorney Bob Frazier worked on the Rockefeller campaign. He had worked for the Rockefeller family previously, and he says he was impressed by the governor's social conscience despite his enormous wealth.
I really feel that Nelson Rockefeller had a true social conscience. I think Richard Nixon wanted to be president, and for sake of being president, and what it meant to him more than perhaps what it meant to be for the country. And that offended me from the very beginning. And, you know, I feel like a prophet because that's what turned out to be.
Frazier was one of a dozen Oregonians who flew out to New York in March to try to convince Rockefeller to run, but the governor decided it would hurt the party.
For it is, even fully united, a minority party.
I certainly was impressed with what the governor had to say, his reasons for doing what he's doing. Certainly he has a view of the country, a view of the world situation that I do not.
Behind the scenes, Rockefeller told his Oregon supporters he did not want to put his wife happy through another presidential campaign. 4 years before, Rockefeller's critics had questioned his decision to divorce his wife, Mary, after 31 years, to wed a woman recently divorced herself.
They were really on her back, so to speak, and he was the first president to have, or the first real nominee to have gone through this kind of thing. And you know, if Lancelot can do everything and then all of a sudden he takes up with King Arthur's wife, then everybody wants to bring him down simply because he was Sir Lancelot.
Rockefeller decided to return to the presidential race 6 weeks later, but it was too late to put his name on the Oregon ballot.
If anybody decides to vote for me, he's bought my philosophy. I haven't bought his.
Now, the only other challenge to frontrunner Nixon was California Governor Ronald Reagan. The former movie actor had been propelled into politics by an impressive speech for Goldwater.
You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
In 1966, Reagan was elected governor by a landslide over incumbent Pat Brown.
The record is unmistakably clear. Public ownership is marked by colossal failure. Famine in China, and probably in Russia if we didn't bail them out every once in a while with some of our vast surplus produced so easily on our privately owned farms.
Reagan had become the new darling of conservative Republicans, like Peter Murphy of Eugene.
You know, he was a very warm and personal fellow, and I really picked up on that. And being young and my first entry into the political campaign, you know, I could remember that. So I was, you know, probably you'd call it gung-ho for Ronald Reagan.
Reagan was on the Oregon ballot, but he refused to campaign in person.
He made the promise during the '66 campaign that he would be a full-time governor and that he would not run in '68, even though they said they tried to involve him into the presidential race in '66. So I think he really kept his promise to Californians, and that's why he did not become active.
It was brand new when Cy opened the store in 1978. 50 pounds of flour when we make the dough. It actually makes about 100 pounds of dough. We do this every day. Figure over 37 years, we probably made 13,000 batches of dough or more. It's the foundation of the pizza. Kind of the idea is you're just tightening it, getting the air out. No cracks, no holes in it. So from that 2-pound ball that had about a 6-inch diameter, we're taking it out to about 20 inches. Fresh ingredients. We make our dough, we grate our own cheese, we make our sauce, and I like to think that we make our pizzas with love. All right, that's 21-incher. Size matters.
It's a great way to build relationships.
If you're looking for a barber who understands the art of cutting hair, Francesco Michelli is the man. This guy really knows what he's doing. He takes his time, he understands his customer, and he knows what makes you look good. They even do the little extras, like a straight razor shave to get those little hairs off of all those places. Yep, even the top of ears. I'm telling you, if you want a good haircut, somebody who knows what they're doing, a true artist, go to my barber. Fresh cut. Francesco Michelli. He's the man. 541-357-6903. But what you guys do here in this building, it's pretty rich.
Oh, it's thrilling, really. I mean, I'm a natural-born reference librarian, so I love to help people find stuff and find stuff for people and connecting people with information that they need or that they're excited about is deeply satisfying to me. And I'm really good at finding stuff and kind of tracking things down as a detective. So working in special collections where we have things that are truly unique. We have the only copy that exists of some of these things. And so it takes it to an even more, a deeper level, a more exciting level, because they have to come, people have to come to our physical space to use the materials. Most of it has not been digitized, so it's not available. They have to come here, they have to handle the physical item, whether it's a tiny little Oregon Trail diary written in pencil by somebody in 1849. We have that. And we had a 7-year-old boy here 2 weeks ago with his mother whose perhaps great-grandfather came across on the Oregon Trail, and he got to look at that diary. And he came with his mom, and then 2 days later, they came back with more family members, and they're all gathered around the table looking at this amazing thing. So it's a time machine for people to be able to look at those things, to handle the things that have been handled by people over the centuries.
That left Oregon all to Richard Nixon.
Well, hi, how are you? You boys are in school here, huh?
Yeah, Sunset.
Sunset, oh yeah, that's the sign I saw a little earlier, right.
In Corvallis, he talked about Vietnam.
I am against Senator McCarthy's proposal, and Bobby Kennedy, I think, has endorsed this to an extent, at one time at least, of a coalition government. It would end the war, but it would lose the peace. And I say, after the sacrifices that Americans have made in this war, let's end the war, but let's win the peace so that we don't have another Vietnam within a matter of 4 or 5 years.
In McMinnville, he talked about crime.
Here in this peaceful valley, this may seem not particularly relevant to you, but you go to the great cities of this country and you know what I'm talking about, the fact that fear stalks the streets of many of our cities, apart from any racial disturbances.
And in Roseburg, he talked about youth.
People, but isn't it tremendous the way the college students and the high school students and even the grade school students are out campaigning now for the people of their South? And incidentally, I'm glad to note that we have a lot of them here. That proves that all the young people aren't for Bobby.
In the final day,
Just over that hill in Springfield off of Mohawk Boulevard is our favorite Mexican food restaurant in all of Western Oregon, Ranchito Grill. And they do a lunch special every week, every day for $6.95, and it's a great deal. They also work with us to give away 2 free dinners once a month, and all you have to do is go into Abe, go have dinner, fill out your information, put it in the box that's under Rick Dancer TV. We draw a name every month, and this month the winner is Derek Langendorfer. So Derek Langendorfer, you are our winner. We will be contacting you, and for the rest of you, if you want the free dinners, you gotta go sign up. That's how it happens. Tell Abe we said hi. He likes to hear from us.
This is Ron Sturry, service manager at Kiefer Mazda.
I want you to be comfortable with what I do for your car. It indicates that the battery is well above what it needs to do.
Ron likes to help people.
Because this is a relationship. Rick, did you know if you buy a car down the street or one with high miles on it, we'll do an inspection on it?
Well, a Mazda, yeah.
No, any car, Rick.
Really?
Really.
A brake check, tire wear, battery check. Check and refill your fluids. Check your wiper blades, your lights, your air filter, even a state-of-the-art alignment. And they'll rotate your tires. Really?
In fact, Rick, if the viewers mention that they saw this on Rick Dancer TV, I'll do it for free.
Why?
Because we do what works for you and you.
in the final days before the primary, it became clear Nixon would do well, but the Reagan factor was still difficult to predict. On the Democratic side, Kennedy held a thin margin over McCarthy in the polls.
This is a great and a significant election here in 1968, here in the state of Oregon.
Kennedy had won every previous primary he had contested, in part because minorities and poor people voted for him in blocks. But critics call Oregon the great white middle-class suburb, and Kennedy knew victory here would be tough.
We cannot tolerate the deep divisions that exist between blacks and whites in our major cities. Perhaps it's not an issue that affects you. Perhaps not an issue that affects this state as much as it does my own state of New York or Illinois or California. But still, as American citizens, it affects us all.
Eugene McCarthy had organized early in Oregon. Nevertheless, he crisscrossed the state chasing Kennedy.
I think the case is rather clear as to what's wrong about our involvement in Vietnam, and I think the case is rather clear as to what we ought to be doing about our problems here at home.
When we elect him, then he can serve us. Nixon is your kind of man.
On the Republican side, the only question now was what the margin of victory would be for Richard Nixon over Governors Ronald Reagan of California and Nelson Rockefeller of New York.
Which do you see as the greater threat, Mr. Nixon, Governor Reagan or Governor Rockefeller, in the overall?
Not just in Oregon, you mean?
No,
you mean overall? Well, I don't think either is a threat in that sense.
On Tuesday, May 28th, the results came in. McCarthy had won an upset victory over Kennedy. It was the first time anyone in the Kennedy family had lost a contested election, and it was McCarthy's greatest political victory.
It was a good state in that you figured that the individual citizen had taken a look at it and had decided between us it wasn't any kind of panic voting. So we credit them with good judgment and a responsible press and everything else of that kind.
On the Republican side, Richard Nixon won a landslide victory and weakened the Dump Nixon movement. Thanks in part to Oregon Republicans, Nixon easily won the nomination in Miami that summer. McCarthy and a politically wounded Kennedy moved on to California. The winner there would be crowned as the main challenger to Vice President Humphrey for the nomination. Kennedy finally debated McCarthy, and apparently it paid off. Kennedy rebounded and won the California primary.
The country wants to move in a different direction. We want to deal with our own problems within our own country, and we want peace in Vietnam.
8 days earlier, in a Roseburg crowd, Kennedy had seen several signs that demanded the right to bear arms. The senator asked somebody to come up and explain the signs. Bud Scone did. And for a few minutes, side by side, they debated a gun registration bill Kennedy favored.
There's a certain mystique about somebody that's running for president. And when I had an opportunity to stand alongside of him, side by side, talking directly, in the same mic, why, you get a feel for the person.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've kept the air on because we've heard an alarming report that Robert Kennedy was shot.
Oh, my God. Senator Kennedy has been shot, and possibly shot in the head.
Here in Los Angeles, minutes after his California victory speech, an assassin ended Robert Kennedy's dream. Scone says he was shocked by Robert Kennedy's assassination.
I said, no. Instance that you say no, and then you feel, why? You're sitting there, you just talk to the guy, and you can see him yet in your mind, and you just say, it's totally incomprehensible. He's not here anymore. You just wonder.
20 years later, Scone remains opposed to gun control. Kennedy's assassination was followed by the most divisive Democratic convention in history. Violence broke out on the streets of Chicago during protests over the war. Hubert Humphrey was nominated, but in the November election, he narrowly lost to Nixon.
Having lost a close one 8 years ago and having won a close one this year, I can say this: winning's a lot more fun.
Later, rules were changed in both parties to better reflect voter preferences in presidential primaries. The big issue of 1968 was not settled until 1973, when Americans finally came home from Vietnam. The South eventually fell to the communists.
And so we leave with high hopes, in good spirit, and with deep humility.
On the political side, the Watergate scandal forced Nixon to become the first president to resign. But the losers in the '68 Republican Oregon primary did pretty well in later years. Ronald Reagan was eventually elected president twice, and Nelson Rockefeller became vice president in 1974.
I don't see us, there's no way we can get involved as deeply in Nicaragua as we did in Vietnam.
Eugene McCarthy ran for president again and remains popular on the lecture circuit, but he never came as close to the presidency as he did that day in Oregon. In later years, the Oregon primary lost its importance, mainly because it became so relatively late in the presidential selection process. But Oregon continues to have a reputation for independent voting, and candidates still want to win here because it gives them momentum going into the largest primary of all, California. That's our look at the 1968 presidential primary, Oregon in the Spotlight. I'm Steve Frank.
On April 26th, you will have the chance to help build a home like this for someone in our community through Habitat for Humanity. And you're going to build that house in 1 hour. I know that sounds crazy, but they did it last year with the help and support of a lot of people in this community. So here's what you do. On April the 26th from 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning at the Hilton Hotel, there'll be a breakfast. You show up and attend, and you're going to meet some people who are just going to blow you away. The family you're about to meet will explain to you why Habitat for Humanity is more than just a home. It's a lot more.
I'm overwhelmed, excited. I'm just trying not to cry. This is really, really huge. Such an amazing event. And I just see so many different people I need to see and thank, and oh my gosh. Marion, you made it! Oh, thank you. When you really set your mind to something and you have goals, it's possible with hard work and dedication and responsibility if you just stick it out no matter how hard it is. The last place that we lived, it was very hard to keep it warm. It was just a freezing cold house all the time. We were crowded. We could barely afford to keep the place heated. Our kids didn't have anywhere safe to play.
You can see how badly he wants to get in the yard. He just stands there right by the edge all day wanting to get in it.
The outside of the whole premises was just covered in cat manure. My husband was diagnosed with cancer, so it just felt like the whole world was just caving in on us.
That's been the biggest struggle, getting prepared to buy a house, because we were on the right track a little bit before the cancer hit me. Every dime we had in savings had to go to that to get us back on to square one.
Then we got accepted into Habitat, and from that day forward, things changed. We had hope. We knew that we were going to be taken care of. After, almost 3 years of waiting and working hard and doing everything that we can for this day to happen.
What's it taken to get here?
A lot of obstacles, a lot of ups and downs, and a lot of hard times. We've been through a lot in our life. And watching that foundation be poured was really amazing and very emotional for me, because it started. There's no turning back now, and it's a real thing. It's not just, oh, someday in the future. Like, it started, and that was a really neat day. So this is my kitchen. I'm super excited about it. I'm in love with it. I love to cook here, and raising this wall with the 4 congregations. It was really powerful, a really neat time. Everybody raising it up, and just the voices coming from all different directions.
Over here. Keep scraping.
Keep scraping,
okay.
we get it. Yeah. It's all right, raise it up, everybody.
Yeah.
Woo, it's just really exciting moment, that final wall. All walls of my house are up now. And just having everybody together, from all these congregations that are now physically helping build the house, along with supporting our house in finances and prayer and meals and all things. They just helped, and that final wall going up was just really symbolic, and it was really, really neat to be a part of and emotional for me. I can remember looking specifically at each one of these studs, reading about 1 million times all the different blessings. Oh, well, right here, of course, the first one that I read when they were up there is, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." There's Hebrew scriptures, you know, Christian, there's several different religions and different types of prayers and scriptures that are written in these studs. We've really formed a lot of relationships, and it's really amazing, and we feel so loved by so many different people, and you know, people like to stop by and just say hi. And
they're little boys.
Oh, that's
One,
perfect.
and they're 2 different ones.
You know, give us a little gift here or there, something to just show their support and love for us and everything. Habitat's a part of our lives, and now we have this extended family, First Congregational, the temple, all of them. They all have accepted us 100%, and they just have poured their love on us. This is changing our life forever. We are so blessed, and we can't thank Habitat and everybody involved enough. Yeah, Habitat is not just about getting a house and, you know, reaching your goal of being homeowners. That's obviously a huge part of it, but it's a new way of life.
This is like probably the biggest weight I've ever had taken off my shoulder, because this sets up my wife, my kids. Whether cancer comes back or something comes to take me away, I know they're safe.
The families that you're helping by donating to Habitat is not only going to change their lives by making them homeowners, but you're empowering the community, empowering people to do better and be a part of this community, be successful members of this community.
Hi, that's Rick Dancer. I've known him all my life. He's a professional storyteller. Rick produces videos for businesses, nonprofits, anybody who needs to be heard. We all have a story, and that story is what makes us different from our competition.
This is changing our life forever.
But video producers don't understand how to find and then tell your story. Rick does understand and made his career out of his gift to go deep.
We have heart.
To find your story.
There's a lot of problems in this world that affect a lot of people, but they thought this is something we can do something about. You know, childhood hunger is something that we can get together and we can do something about.
To evoke emotion.
But to see hope and to feel hope with them and to see change, I mean, that's what it's all about. That's what life's all about, I think, you know.
And provoke your clients to give you a call. Hey, business is all about relationship. Rick understands that. Don't settle for just another video. Give Rick a call and let him truly tell your story.